All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Hannah. You've probably seen me poking around your inbox before. It's nice to meet you if not. I lead email and community at Growclass. So if you're not familiar with Growclass, we are a 6-week growth marketing course and community filled with founders, marketers, and freelancers. And we teach folks they need to grow their careers and their businesses. But today I'm really excited to learn how to consistently close sales calls without being salesy with Melissa Lohrer. So Melissa is a business development partner for independent creative agencies planning their path to $1 million. After 13 years working in-house as a head of growth and development, Melissa was frustrated by a broken model she couldn't fix. So as a consultant and strategist, she works with independent agency founders to take the anxiety and complicated misconceptions out of business development so they can take ownership of their growth in their businesses. I'm going to drop all of Melissa's links in the chat for everyone. So if you want to connect with her, you can find her there. If you have any questions throughout this session, we do have time for a Q&A. So you can, we'll do that at the end of the call, but feel free to unmute yourself. You can use the hand up emoji if you want to ask a question. Drop your questions in the chat throughout. And if you're feeling a little bit shy, you can also send me a private message and I'll ask the question on your behalf. Just a reminder, there's no such thing as a dumb question. We're all here to learn. This is a judgment-free zone. So we just ask that you keep it kind and respectful, and we'll all be okay. But with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over to Melissa so we can learn how to consistently close sales calls without being salesy. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for the intro, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm so excited to chat about this. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully the right screen comes up. Can everyone see the presentation in full mode? Okay, cool. Okay, so before I'm super excited about this topic. Before we get into it, I want to share just a little bit about myself, so you know who you're talking to. I'm Melissa. My business is Waverly Ave Consulting. Was born and raised in New York, but fun fact about me, I've been to more countries than I've been to United States. So I have traveled very much outside of New York, but have landed back in New York, and this is where I live today. I've spent 14 years in the agency industry. My first job was a receptionist, so I have gone through lots of different levels and roles. My last job in a full-time role at an agency was a head of growth. I was overseeing new business marketing for the agency, and my last agency, I spent a decade there. I've been working in agency business development for over a decade. My path in business development has very much been an organic one, and one of the reasons I want to talk about this today is I never saw myself as a salesperson. So I found my way through business development with a more relationships forward approach. And I know you don't have to be salesy to be good at business development or sales. So we'll dig into that more. But I've defined success for most of my career by titles and salary milestones. And that led me, while I had amazing experiences, led me directly to a place of burnout. So I left my role in agencies and became a consultant. And for the past year and a half, have been working with about 25 agency founders on growing their business, acquiring better clients and more revenue. So while my niche is focused on agencies, a lot of the things I'll talk about today apply to really any service-based business. So if you're not an agency, that's totally fine. There's probably a lot you can take away from this. So I'm going to dive in today, but just encourage anyone, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll look at that at the end. And yeah, I'm excited. So let's jump in. So I want to start by debunking some common myths about sales that I see from my clients or hear from my clients a lot. And if any of these are things you've experienced or think, I'd love to see a reaction. If you click reactions and click a thumbs up on the bottom of your Zoom, I'd love to just kind of see which of these kind of resonate with people. I'm going to read them out. So sales is all about being pushy and aggressive. You have to manipulate people to make sales. Only extroverts can succeed in sales. Closing deals is about the perfect pitch, and sales is a numbers game. Quality doesn't really matter. So, anyone hear of some of these common myths? I'm going to kind of reframe what sales is really about for you. So, sales is not about selling. I work with a lot of creatives who can be traditionally introverted and consider themselves not great at sales. But the reason most people think they're not good at sales is because they think sales is about selling, and they have that wrong. Sales is really about relationships. And if you think of, a spectrum of relationships from total stranger to a client, someone who becomes a client, right? The selling piece comes at the last final stage of that relationship. And we're building a relationship with people leading up to the sale, and especially in the service-based business, right? Like, people are hiring people they like, know, and trust. So we have to, if you're thinking about sales as selling, you're only focusing on that final phase, but you really should be, the more of the emphasis should be on building the relationship. I'm sure all of you have received some cold DM or spam email, and if it's someone you don't know, what are you most likely to do? You're going to delete it, right? Because you have no relationship with that person. So I want you to reframe sales as not about selling, but as about relationships, with selling being the final phase of that relationship. Sales is not about talking, despite what most people think. A lot of people think that, and I definitely felt this when I got into a business development role, you have to be a charismatic talker, you have to be a confident talker. But actually, sales is more about listening to what your prospect needs. They want to feel seen and heard, not sold to. So if you can be a really good active listener, you'll probably go a lot further in selling services than if you're a really good talker. Sales is not about you. A lot of people think you have to have this perfect elevator pitch and this like really nice way of framing up who you are and what you do. But sales is actually more about them. It's about your prospect. It's about them looking for a solution to their problem. It's not about you. So I'm going to walk you through kind of 4 chapters of how to reframe sales and ways you can make it more about the relationship, ways you can make it more about listening, ways you can make it more about your prospect instead of yourself. And I'll kind of illustrate specific examples of what's worked really well for my clients and some of the practices I do for my business. And then we'll have some time at the end for specific questions, if that sounds good. So the first one is making your prospect comfortable from the start. Comfort is key. We want to make sure that the other person, and I'm talking specifically on the sales call, but I'll highlight ways of building the relationship before. But if you're on a sales call, we want to make sure your prospect is comfortable. People are buying from people. If they buy from you, if they're buying your services, it's because they like, know, and trust you. If you're not building a relationship with your prospects before you actually get on the call, there's a lot of pressure, and a lot of my clients experience this. There's a lot of pressure to build like, know, and trust on a 30-minute call. And there's ways you can kind of enhance that and build that trust, but it's a lot of pressure. So hopefully you guys are building a relationship before they actually get on the call. And this can happen without you actively being part of it. This could be them reading content on LinkedIn from you or Instagram, listening to a podcast you were on, reading an article you had a byline for, or even a referral from a peer who's telling you, oh my gosh, this person is incredible at this. They're the go-to person for this. So they're likely building a relationship with you through your marketing and content and ways they're coming across you. When you get on the call, we want to make them as comfortable as possible so that they can openly engage with you. They can share valuable information that guides you to, the solution that best fits the problem they have. So how do we do this? So 3 key things with this. We want to get them talking. A lot of my clients will get on a call and feel they need to jump in and start selling. Actually, the best way to make a prospect comfortable is to get them talking first. So you can do this by asking a really simple, open-ended question to get started. So some of my favorites that I give my clients are, what prompted you to reach out? Or I'd love to hear the story of your business and where you're at today. Something that gives them space to kind of talk, not a yes or no, not a short answer, but something that's sort of like open. This will do 2 things. It will get them comfortable because they know how to talk about their business or what prompted them to reach out. That's easy for them to respond to. It's not a hard question to start with. But it also gives you really valuable information in terms of their needs and what you can offer to fill their needs. I'm going to give an example of this because you may find that this happens to you and it's kind of a really helpful tactic to turn things around. So I was on a call yesterday actually with a prospect who started the call. They sort of like took control and said, like, we'd love for you to kind of share more about your business and what you do. I could have just responded and gone into like some generic elevator pitch and then waited for the awkward moment to see if that kind of connected with them. But I changed the dynamic and I said, I'd love to share a little bit more about my business, but can we start with, I'd love to hear what prompted you to reach out and where your business is at today. That led to 20 minutes of them talking about their business, giving me tons of information that helped me then react and respond, which takes all the pressure off you selling. So you want to be in that position where, again, you get them talking. This gives you information and can help inform where you're taking the conversation, but it also takes the pressure off them. They can just talk about their business. They don't have to feel like they're being sold to and they need to react to that. So if you find that initially on a call, a prospect is putting it on you, you can redirect and put it back on them and ask for some more information. Second, as you're going through the call, you want to ask thoughtful, non-intrusive questions. You can standardize sort of like a discovery call question list, but you want to ask things like, what have you tried in the past and why didn't it work? This will help make sure that you're not recommending things that maybe they've attempted already with another consultant or agency. And it will give you some information on like, you might be able to identify why something didn't work. Maybe there was something missing in what they attempted. If you don't know what to ask, if you feel like you're kind of stuck and you can't think of any questions, an easy question is, can you share more on that in reaction to whatever they just shared? And just ask them to share a little bit more information. All this information, again, is going to help you make a direct connection between the problem they have and the offer you can bring. So I like to say, if you have a 30-minute call with them, if there's a 30-minute sales call, try to give them 20 minutes of talking and just continue to pitch it back to them to keep digging for information. And then the last piece, which I'll guide you through how to get to your portion of it, can be much more targeted and specific. The last thing here in making them comfortable is you demonstrating expertise on their business and their problem. So some of the things that I'll do with a prospect is highlight, this is really common, the thing you're experiencing, I hear this all the time. That's something that will immediately make a prospect comfortable that they're not alone in this experience. It also signals to them that you're an expert in solving this problem because you've seen it a lot. It creates some common ground. There's like a common understanding of this person understands what I'm going through. So you create some bonding and like, know, and trust through that. So 3 things to really make sure in terms of the dynamic of the call, that you're making your prospect really comfortable. And therefore kind of not holding back any information. They're going to be much more forthcoming. The second tip here is to be an advisor. You want to reframe your role when you're going into a sales call as, instead of thinking of yourself as the salesperson, I have something to show up and push and close with. You want to be your customer's advocate and sort of try to put yourself in the mindset of I'm an objective advisor who is assessing the problem they have, and I'm going to suggest or recommend some solutions. People really don't want to be sold to. They want a thought partner when they're going into a call. They want an expert who understands their business and a thought partner guiding them towards the right decision. They don't want to feel pushed into a decision. They want to feel like they're coming to their own conclusion, but someone objectively is kind of informing them on the best way forward. So a couple of specific tips on this. You really want to prioritize them. So things you can say that will help kind of set up this dynamic is, how can I help? That will set the tone of, I'm here to help you. I'm not here to sell you on anything. And sometimes in a really good way, this can catch somebody off guard. They're expecting you to show up and sell them on something, and they're pleasantly surprised that you're kind of genuinely there to help. Another go-to is, let's figure out if I'm the right solution for you. You're saying, like, I'm not sure if I'm the right solution for you, and I'm going to help work with you to figure out if I am. So again, you're going back to building like, know, and trust. You're getting confidence from your prospect that you're not there to push something. You're there to understand and see if there's a fit. The second is, we want to focus on solving problems. So you want to shift the conversation from, these are my offers, to understanding. And if you do the first part right, you're going to understand your prospect's specific pain points and how you can directly connect. Maybe there's a few pain points to one offer or potentially a few offers. And if there are things that go beyond your solutions, you can also highlight, like, hey, I don't do this, but it sounds like you also might need this. That gives them reassurance that, again, you're an expert in their business, you know what they need, you're the right person to help get them to the next place. So, and you can illustrate this through examples of situations you've helped solve for similar businesses. So let's say you're a website agency, you're on a discovery call, and the client's telling you, we're not getting enough traffic to our website, or we're not seeing any conversions. You can share some insight into why that might be happening. So typically we see, when we work with clients that are experiencing that problem, that the common reason is these three things. And typically what we do to solve for that is this. You're not saying, I need to do this for you. You're just giving them sort of like objective advice on their problem, which will further build trust and demonstrate your expertise. And the last tip on this page is co-creating solutions with them, which will demonstrate and highlight partnership. And this is specifically key for agencies that don't want to be seen as a vendor or an executor. They really want to be establishing partnership. This has to happen at the beginning, from the initial sales call. So we want to get out of clients saying, I need a website, and you're saying, okay, I'll react to that. We want to co-create and shape solutions with them on the call. So this can come from, asking them, like, as they're sharing information, what do you think would be most helpful to you? And letting them kind of play back to you what solution they're thinking. And you can either respond to that and enhance it and say, that's exactly what I'm thinking, what I would add to that. And you're co-creating with them. You're already acting as a partner to them. So they're seeing you as a partner in their business rather than someone who's just giving them a generic quote for what they're asking for. So you want to kind of co-create that, create an opportunity for the client to input on it and to tell you, and then you can react and shape that with them. So this goes right into our next session, which is putting your prospect in the driver's seat. We're not trying to convince anyone of anything. We're not trying to manipulate them. We want them to be in the driver's seat and empower them to make the right decision for their business. And if you have the right filtering system to make sure that the clients that are actually setting up calls with you are qualified. It's okay to put them in the driver's seat. You're not kind of coming from a scarcity mindset of like, I need to win every client. Anyone coming to you generally is a good fit, and you're comfortable giving them the power of making the decision if you're the right fit for them. So people want to make their own decisions, right? They don't sometimes, especially in the agency space or consulting space, they may not have worked with someone like you. They don't really know what it entails. So talking to you is them educating themselves on, how do I make this decision? What are things I need to consider? And you can be the person that's helping them evaluate how they need to make this decision. So a couple things here. You want to educate them without overwhelming them. So there's a tipping point with too much information, which will paralyze someone who's looking to make a decision. You want to make the decision for them very simple. And that comes in having a very simple offer that has a direct connection to their problem. Don't try to oversell them on, let's say you do branding and websites and they're communicating an issue with their website. Don't try to sell them on branding, have a specific offer directed to the problem, unless that's part of like your philosophy and approach, but just don't overcomplicate what you're selling. Make it very simple. They don't need to also, I have a lot of clients who will go into the sausage making of, we have 3 concepts and then you're narrowing it down to 2, and then we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. Like that is too much information. That's not what they're buying. They want to buy a solution, and you need to frame your offer in painting a picture of where you're going to take them, not like these are all the steps, because that can muddle the offer and kind of make it unattractive. Second, you want to offer guidance, but not pressure. Speak from the position of, someone who has worked in this space for a long time, who's worked with a lot of clients like them, and help them understand any concerns they have or objections they might have. Oh yeah, that's something that I hear a lot of people experience. What typically happens is, and kind of guide them that way versus putting any kind of pressure. Like, if you don't do this soon, your business is going to fail, or I only have 2 spots available this month. You should really make this decision quickly. That pressure is not going to help. You want to come from a place of guidance. And then the last one is helping facilitate informed choices on their part. So you can explain the options they have, whether that's working with you, working with someone else, or that could be options within your agency. Like you might have 3 different packages that they can choose from, helping them explain which package you think is best for them and what most people with their problem typically go for. You can talk about case studies of before and after results that you've experienced working with businesses like them, and the results that they can expect after. You can offer to send them testimonials, or if they feel like they need to talk to one of your past clients directly, you're trying to facilitate them in making the best decision for them. And you can even say that. I've said that on calls, like, I'm not here to push you to work with me. I'm genuinely invested in you making the best decision for your business. If that's me, great. If it's not, and I can help guide you to a different solution, let me know. And that will make someone feel very comfortable that they're in the driver's seat of that decision. And then the last one that I find so many of my clients are kind of uncomfortable with is like giving them space. So people want to, naturally on a sales call, you feel the instinct to, towards the end, make your pitch and ask them sort of like, okay, should I send you a proposal? Or, I can kick off next week. Is that what you want to do? And like pressuring them. The best thing you can actually do is give them a little bit of space. And that's how you can close the deal if you've done the first 3 right. So, they don't want to make decisions. People don't want to make decisions under pressure. So you have to resist that feeling of filling the awkward silence at the end of a call with you jumping in and suggesting what they should do, because then you'll just kind of undo the good work you just did by putting them in the driver's seat. So I'll kind of give you guys some specific examples and tips on this. The first is leave it on their terms. So let's say you spend the first 20 minutes asking questions, they're opening up about their business, and then naturally they typically turn it back on you. Like, can you share a little bit about, have you done this work before? Have you worked with other clients? How would you approach this? You'll share a little bit about that. Resist the urge to say, so if you want, I can send you a proposal, because I see a lot of my clients doing this, and it's really awkward for someone to say no to that. You're not going to get a lot of people saying, no, don't send me a proposal. This call was awful. So they're probably going to say yes, and because they feel uncomfortable, and you're going to waste your time writing a lot of proposals and getting ghosted. And ghosting happens a lot with this because we are filling the silence with, I'll write you a proposal, and it just helps end that call with like, without it being awkward. But really resist the urge. And what I typically say is, it was so great getting to know you. If I feel they're my ideal client, I'll communicate like, your problems that you shared are the exact kind of challenges I solve. I would love to work with you. I'm going to leave you with that. And if you're interested, if you want to have a follow-up call, we can set up time. By putting it in their camp, typically if they want to work with you, they'll say it. I've had people on the phone say, no, I actually want to work with you. What can we do to move that forward? Which tells me, okay, they're definitely interested. Versus if I jump in and say, I'm going to write a proposal, I don't know where that person stands, whether they want to work with me or not. So put it in, leave it on their terms and let them decide what next steps look like. Sometimes I've also just directly asked, like, what do next steps look like for you? Like, where are you at this point? And they'll either say, I really want to think this over, or they'll say, I'd love to see what this looks like. Can you outline what the process would look like? So put it on them and let them guide you to what the right next step is. I promise you, you'll save a lot of time in writing proposals that go nowhere. Second is be really clear on next steps. So if you are kind of leaving the call with, they're going to think about it, I would say, great, I'm going to send you an email in a week to check in. If you want to reach out to me sooner, feel free. Otherwise, you'll hear from me. If it's Tuesday, you'll hear from me next Tuesday. Then they know exactly when you'll be reaching out. And you also know that if they reach out sooner, obviously they're eager to work with you. If they don't, they may have changed their mind or lost interest or be talking to other people. So just end the call with clarity on what you're going to be doing, what you want them to do. Like, hey, if you want to set up a follow-up, let me know in the next few days. Just be really clear on what next steps look like, and let them know like what you would need if you do need to write a proposal. And follow up quickly. So send a thank you note as quickly as possible, like within 24 hours, ideally. Short, sweet, something specific that you talked about on your call, with, a nice compliment of, I really love your business, what you stand for. I think I could really add value. If you're interested in next steps, like, let me know. That thank you note goes really far and shows that you're not just taking these calls and, they're just one of many on a conveyor belt. They will feel like there's some thoughtfulness there. And then that might prompt a follow-up from there. I got a question before this call in my DMs, which was, if I'm doing a lot of highly customized proposals, I find it really hard on the call to be kind of guiding them to an offer in that moment. So if you're doing a lot of customized scoping and proposals, if on this initial sales call, you don't have enough information to write a proposal, and there's a lot of work for you to do to figure out what this client needs, and they're asking for a proposal, take a step back and let them know, like, hey, I'd love to write a proposal for you. I need more information. Can I send you a few questions, or can we have a follow-up call so I can go through a few questions with you? That's really important. So don't just force scoping something where when you're left with a lot of questions. The second thing is I really encourage anyone who does custom proposals that be a final formality. There should be still in this initial sales call, you should still feel they've made the decision to work with you, because if you're doing custom proposals, they require a lot of time and you want to be really efficient with your time and, getting to that custom proposal phase. A client should have to earn that. So some ways around that to make sure a client is in the right financial place and has the right expectations in working with you is to get a budget out of them for what they expect to invest in the project and working with you. If it's the case that they say, I don't have a budget, which happens and can be frustrating, there are ways you can get numbers from them. You don't want to leave a call with someone asking for a proposal and you not know at all if their expectations are aligned with yours. It's a complete waste of time. So a couple ways I'll guide my clients to do this is, let's say they're looking to do a website and you say, okay, have you thought about what kind of budget you have in terms of investing towards this? And let's say they say, I've never done anything like this. I really have no idea what this costs, or I haven't really thought about a budget yet. You should have sort of like a threshold for what your kind of like minimum pricing looks like, or based on the conversation and the information they shared, you should have in your head like ballpark estimate of like, this website feels like it's going to be a 30 to 50K type website. Put that number out in front of them and have them react to it. You can say, my pricing starts for what we've talked about today is going to be in the range of 30 to 50K. That's not specific, but I just want to make sure, or I want to kind of like hear your reaction to that. Does that feel in line with the expectations you're looking to invest in your website? They will either take themselves out of the process and say, oh my gosh, no, I was going to spend $5,000 and you've just saved your time in doing a proposal. Or they'll say, yeah, that's kind of in the range. I was hoping to, they'll react and they will give you a budget. They have a budget. They just don't know. They don't know if they want to say it. They don't know if it's higher than what your numbers look like, and they don't want to put that number out there. So give them something to react to is my best advice. Never kind of go in blindly to writing a proposal if you don't know where someone stands. Most of the time, if you haven't vetted it, and most of the time it would be a waste of time. So just do it right on the call so you know if you're wasting your time or not. But this should come at the very end after you've had the whole conversation, you know their problem, you know the solution that fits their problem, and you can kind of confidently say, this is kind of the range. And if they have a reaction that you feel is off for their ask, like their budget really should be what you're providing, you can use that as an opportunity to educate them. Like, hey, you might be able to find a $5,000 website working with like a junior freelancer, but if this is something that's really important to you, I just want to kind of like educate you on the pricing for what experts like me are going to be quoting you. And anyone that's quoting you less likely has a lot less experience and isn't going to be solving the problem you have. That again will position you as the expert, and whether or not they're ready to work with someone like you, you've built a relationship with them and they likely will come back to you when they are ready to invest that. So remember that pricing is very subjective, and if someone hasn't gone through the work of hiring someone like you before, they might not know what it costs, and this should be an opportunity to educate them on what that looks like. Okay, so to recap, before we go into Q&A, the 4 things of that I wanted to really highlight were: make your prospect comfortable from the start, change your dynamic going in from thinking of yourself as the salesperson to thinking of yourself more as an advocate for your prospect. You want to empower them to make the decision. And then lastly, give them space to make that decision and to come to you, and stand confidently in letting them come to you when they feel they have made that decision. So I'm going to open it up to any questions. As we said in the beginning, like no wrong questions. So please feel comfortable asking anything you'd like. I see a hand raised and I haven't opened the DMs, but
We can kick it off with Deek, we got you, and then we'll probably go over into the chat for Steven.
awesome. Go ahead, Deek.
Hey, Melissa, can you hear
Hey.
me well? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Cheers for this presentation. Very timely. Yesterday, I was I was participating in some process optimization of one sales, and um, they're saying that like they have a drop off with their onboarding, and so but it seems that for me, onboarding is that they've already paid and they've even signed the contracts and they're ready to go. In
Yeah.
this case, the way that they had um, yeah, the way that they explained it is that so they have like that questionnaire, initial interview, and then it's in the onboarding where they continue to hype up the product or the service and they get them to sign the contract and do the payment. And I don't know, like, and I totally resonate with what you said about giving them the space. So I'm wondering whether and the way I see their process is kind of like that. It's like I don't think that you're really giving them space because you're pressuring them to do two major things:
Yeah.
pay the deposit even, and signing contracts. Where
Mhm.
I was part of like this sort of sales court. All I did the interview. They said you have 2 days to accept that you've been selected. I paid it, signed the contracts, and that was it. It was
Yeah.
much easier because I was like, should I do this? Should I not?
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then the onboarding started. So based on this, what are your thoughts about because you I guess you were noticing as well, perhaps this is the process that most people follow, especially if
Yeah.
uh if those services are like from IG or something like that. It's like they want
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
to sign right then and there. So
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
your thoughts with that?
Um, I I think there is a certain kind of buyer that can respond to urgency and pressure, but I think most people, if they're investing in a high ticket service, want to take time to think about that decision. Urgency doesn't work on me. I've had, creative service potential partners reach out to me and say, like, we're doing a limited discount for this month if you don't sign on this month. And in a way, it can actually damage, like, maybe initially I really liked them and then I could be really turned off by that because it feels like they just want to make a sale versus like value the partnership that's, they're going into with me. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I think if you can separate the onboarding from the decision and make the decision more about, you have a offer, a solution that fits the problem they have. They've connected that. They see you as the right person to help them get there. Let them make that decision and then we can move them into now. Great, I'm so excited to work with you. Here's our onboarding process. We're going to send you these 3 things so that we can get started with you. I think that's the best way to approach it. There was another thought I had around urgency too. If it comes back to me, I'll mention it, Deek. But yeah, I just think urgency selling, and it's getting a little bit old because a lot of people are doing it. So it's like, I know you don't have a limited offer. You made up that offer because you want sales right now. So I think people are starting to see through that urgency, that pressure. And oh, this is what I was going to say about it. I think if you attract someone through urgency, you're also going to lose them through urgency. They'll buy another offer that seems more, that seems better, more attractive, has a discount. If there's someone that's choosing a service provider based on a good deal, they're probably not someone who's going to be a loyal long-term client, depending on what your service is. So I think that's something to keep in mind that I tell my clients too. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We got a question in the chat and then we'll pass it to Megan after.
Okay.
Steven's asking, can you share any tips to verify if the person we are talking to has the authority to make decisions?
Yes, I would actually make sure you're not getting on a call with anyone that isn't authorized to make decisions. So if you have like a website form, for example, one of your form fields could be title. If you should know who the decision makers are for your ideal client. For me, it's typically the founder or CEO. If I get someone filling out a form that's like a business development manager, I might respond to their form and just say, hey, first of all, nobody can book a call directly from my site. They have to fill out a form so I can vet people that way. But if I get an email from someone that I don't feel is my ideal client decision maker, I will follow up with them over email and say, it's awesome you reached out. I might ask them some questions. Is your agency leadership involved in or endorsing some kind of business development consultant right now? I'll probably have more of a conversation to see if they are, without asking them, because that can be insulting, but just kind of see if I can get a little more information to see if they're actually someone who can make a decision. But I may directly ask, like, is your founder involved in business development, or will they be attending the call, so I can suss that out. But yeah, I think have form fields that will inform you if you're talking to the right person on the team that typically makes the decisions in hiring someone like you. And then if you see that they're not fitting that criteria, ask questions over email before offering to set up a call, rather than getting on the call and being in an awkward position where you're figuring out that they're not the decision maker on the call. Try and solve that beforehand. And you can always ask for, if they're not the decision maker, if their boss or whatever title you do like to speak to can join the call.
Awesome, thank you. We'll pass it over to you, Megan.
Hey, Megan.
I think you are muted, my friend. It's okay, no worries.
Sorry. Just got back from maternity leave, so still getting used to getting back into calls. So I love the fact that you mentioned that this is all about building relationships. And I actually have kind of a flip the narrative question for you, because I am old enough now to have actually developed a lot of relationships with decision makers, but they're like close personal friendships. So my big question is, how do you make a recommendation for your company to a person that is a close personal friend without it feeling like you're being salesy or, potentially jeopardizing the relationship?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. We have to signal to them that this isn't a friendship conversation, that this is a business conversation. And I don't know if they're doing anything that for you is that you're getting sort of like triggered of, oh, I can help them with that. But let's say they're just venting to you about their business and like they're frustrated that something's not happening, and like you're like, oh, I can solve that problem. If it's in a personal context, let's say you're having, drinks or dinner with them, you could say something like, hey, we should totally talk about that. We can set up time separately, but my business actually does that. If it's more, they're not signaling to you they have a problem that you can solve. Back to the first one, I would take it out of a personal context is the advice, if they're sharing information and you can solve their problem. But like, set up a call, don't do it in a personal context. If it's more of you being proactive and wanting to work with them or get involved in their business in some way, I think you just approach that genuinely as like, hey, Bob, like I obviously, I do a lot of work in your space. Would you ever be up for having a chat about some of the stuff I do for clients like you, and kind of make it more of a genuine, sort of friendly, not pitching them. I think, and regardless if you have a relationship or not with someone, if you don't have a business relationship with someone, I think where a lot of people go wrong is they'll DM someone or send them a pitch, but I would focus on having an initial conversation first, and going back to what we talked about today of like asking them questions, like, what are you, that are relevant to you? So like, what are you struggling with your business right now? Or I can see you're growing your brand, but you haven't updated your website. Has that been, a challenge for you? And kind of letting them talk first, and then you can respond to that. But don't go in, regardless whether it's a friend or not, directly with a pitch, because we all get those DMs and they're off-putting, and there's a feeling of like, that person doesn't even know me, or they don't know my business and what I'm dealing with. Like, how could they assume I need a new website? So you just have to be careful with that. But yeah, I think if it's someone that you have a personal relationship with, just approach it genuinely and like, hey, I'd love to chat sometime if you're up for it. Does that help, Megan?
Absolutely. Thank you. Now I can go into LinkedIn and start doing proper messages.
Yeah, and don't be afraid. I think leveraging your network is so key when you're doing business development. I always say, like, I don't really believe in cold outreach. I believe in warm outreach, and it starts with who you know, who knows you, who has that like, know, and trust with you. Those will be your easiest wins. So it's actually really smart to leverage your connections. You just have to be careful in your approach and not be like, I actually got one last week. Someone is looking for a job. So it wasn't a pitch on, they weren't pitching me on their business, but they were like, hey, I'm out of work and here's what I do. And it would be great if you could share this with your network. Like, I haven't talked to this person in like 2 years. Like, it felt very like self-serving. So just be cognizant if you're reaching out to someone that you're focusing on them. Hey, it'd be great to catch up. And I see you're in this new role. I'd love to chat with you. Obviously, I work in this space. Would be great to kind of talk business. Approach it with them in mind and what's in it for them, versus like, hey, I do this thing, and if you ever need it, let me know. I see that a lot, and it's off-putting for people.
Thank you. Drop back into the chat. We got a question. To me, the question asking is the most important part of the process. I continuously am looking to get better at it. Any questions that you love to use, or areas of questioning you think people tend to miss?
I think people don't ask enough questions. So, as I said, I think one of the best questions is like, tell me more about that, to just keep drilling into, your prospect's problem, and asking things like, what have you tried? Or who leads this on your team? Or it's not so much that you have to come up with these really smart questions, but more that you're doing a really good job of listening and reacting to what they're saying. But yeah, I think the best question to start off with is an open-ended question, like what chapter of, or like, what life cycle is your business in right now? What are the challenges you're experiencing right now? And get them to open up that way. And then once they start unpacking that, you can dig deeper into why that's happening. Or I tell a lot of agencies to ask, like, why now? What prompted you to reach out now? Or why is doing a new website really important to your business right now? Why is this a priority? Are you talking to other people? What are the kind of biggest concerns you have? Have you had this experience in the past, and what about it went well and what didn't go well? I think there's a lot of different directions you can take it in, but I really challenge you to, even when you think you have no more questions, to ask them like one more question, because it really can, I find on sales calls, I don't really have to sell at all. I can ask them questions the whole time, and then in the last few minutes, they're like, how do I work with you? So it makes my job really easy. So if you can just kind of get them talking the whole time, you can react with smart responses of, oh, that's really common, or yeah, Q1 has been really tough for businesses in your industry right now. I've definitely seen that. You don't have to add a lot, but you're showing, you're listening and you're unpacking the client's challenge so they can come to their own conclusion that they need you.
Got another one for you. So I was working in a SaaS company for the restaurant industry, and many times I got on calls with clients and they talk about their pain points. Most of the times it was the economy and food inflation. I honestly felt super weird selling them additional services after hearing them complain about how expensive everything is now. So my question is, how can I continue being a customer advocate, but simultaneously fulfill my quotas when I get these kind of objections time after time? It's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think for one, if there's a challenge happening in your industry and you're in a business that's telling you to sell something, I think it's always important to give feedback back to the business of like, this offer isn't what our ideal clients need right now. I'm constantly getting feedback that this is not what they want to invest in. This isn't important. And I'm hearing their biggest pain point be this. Is there something we can offer? So I think it's important to have a feedback loop, and in different economic moments, offers aren't going to be attractive in the same way they would when, if the economy is doing amazing, and clients are more apt to invest in non-essentials for their business. So I would think about how can we add value if you have the authority to talk to someone who's in charge of your offers and your sales to share that feedback. But I also think I don't know how you're getting on a call with them, if these people have come to you, but if they've come to you, there's probably something they think you can help them with, and just kind of asking and putting on them, like, what are you hoping we can help you solve for? Or how can we, support and have empathy for their situation? Like, we obviously understand for the restaurant industry, it's a tough time right now. What would be an ideal thing that we could support you on? And again, maybe that's something you can kick back for feedback to the product team, or but yeah, I think if you can also educate them on like, hey, I know a lot of businesses like you feel the same way. A lot of them are investing in this product in our product suite right now because it solves for this. I think that's the best answer I can give you. But if you have follow-up questions, feel free to email me and I can try and give you more specific advice on that.
And I think we have another one in the chat. What are your thoughts on cold calling?
This might be harsh, but I think it's a complete waste of time. I'm not a fan of cold anything, whether it's cold outreach, cold DMs, cold emails. I mean, especially cold calling. I don't know about you guys, but if someone cold calls me, I hang up on them right away. I'm not interested in, it feels violating also. Like, how did they get my phone number? So I think I touched on this with Megan's question. If your role is to do outreach, approach it from an inside out approach. So who's your network? Who do you know? Then second degree, and then third degree. And you want to go in that order. So how can we leverage the existing connections we have to introduce us to new connections and build common ground, build trust with people that already are having a good experience with our service that can get us, into new clients. And then with anyone you're reaching out to that's quote unquote cold, find common ground of, there's so much information out there that you can now find. And if you're not leveraging that, it's a little bit lazy, in my opinion, when I get a cold DM and someone spells my name wrong, or they get information wrong about my business. I'm like, literally on my LinkedIn profile. So obviously you did no work to do any kind of research. So I would focus on quality, not quantity when it comes to outreach. And I would focus on, as humans, we're risk averse. So the more you seem like a stranger, the less likely someone is going to respond. So if you can build the bridges of, hey, I noticed that we both worked at PepsiCo with Tim. I worked there during, 2010 to 2011. I see we have a lot of connections. Or, hey, you also went to Georgetown. I went there for my undergrad. Find ways of building common ground, familiarity to make them feel comfortable in responding to you. And if you are going to call someone, I really encourage some kind of dialogue before a call, because I just think calls feel really intrusive. So if there's some kind of DM exchange or email exchange before you take that step of just like cold calling someone. But if you're in the service, if you're in the agency space, I don't think cold anything really works, and it's a waste of time. There's other businesses that it may work for, but I really encourage you to think about, how can I warm up this conversation for someone before I actually kind of step into their world? How can I make some kind of common ground, connection, familiarity, so they feel comfortable talking to me and having a conversation? And as I said in the beginning, selling is the final step. So don't get on a call and sell. Get on a call, get to know them, build a relationship. Maybe you need 2 or 3 calls if you have no relationship before you can actually sell. So no cold selling, please.
All right. Well, Melissa, we are at the top of the hour. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. This was such a great session. A lot of learnings from this one. I'll be dropping all of Melissa's links in the chat. So if anyone wants to connect with her, hit her up on her website, LinkedIn, Instagram. The session was recorded, so if you were seriously taking notes, don't worry about it. We'll be getting the replay out to you shortly, with all Melissa's links as well. Thank you all for joining us on this lovely Tuesday, friends. It was great seeing you. Thanks for your great questions. And thanks again, Melissa. This was so great.
Thanks
Love
so
having
much,
you.
Anna, for facilitating. It was awesome. And please, everyone, feel free to say hi on all the links that Hannah shared. I love connecting with people and supporting people. And I have lots of content I put out that can probably support you. So thanks for joining.
So great. Thank you. Take it
Have
easy,
a great
crew.
day, everyone. Bye.
See you next time.